Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Becoming Me interview where I'm talking to real women who've had real struggles through life, but they have managed to find a real solution. And today I have the beautiful Ari with me, all the way from Tasmania. Hello, Ari. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks, Maria.
So tell us a bit about you and where you were before you found Creatrix.
Yeah, so before it, gosh, it's been a journey, right?
How many years ago?
January 2014, I had my first personal breakthrough. And even then, that was kind of like a bit of a journey. I think I discovered Creatrix probably about 18 months prior to that.
Okay.
I had been following the creator of Creatrix for a little while. At the time I was teaching full time. I also had a direct sales business that I was trying to grow on the side, and so I was sort of really struggling, I suppose, around sort of success blocks and like why wasn't I able to grow things and like the balance. But really what I probably wouldn't even admit to myself at the time was massive struggles with depression and anxiety as well. So I would have really high highs where I was super functional, and then I'd have these massive lows, and it was quite a roller coaster. No one except really close people knew, because I was always like showtime, and hit it really well. And so I actually first started looking at it because I was like, well, I need to like grow my business, and it's obviously just a block around, like I just need the right strategy or the right thing, like something. That's the problem. And ignoring what was realistic, like in hindsight, like the underlying issues, which was I was just struggling on so many.
Wonderful thing, isn't it?
Yeah. So I was following it, and I kind of talked myself out of it initially, because I suppose I was like very skeptical. I prided myself on being, very scientific and, all that kind of stuff. And so I kind of went with what seemed like a more acceptable option of some coaching, some specifically for my business, specifically for a direct sales business. And whilst there was lots of benefits from it, like it wasn't like it was a terrible thing, it just still, like I got into it, and like 12 months into it, I'm like, there's just something holding me back. Like it's not that I don't know what I need to do, and it's not that I don't have some sound strategies and like, the words to say and the methods to do things. Like I've got all of that, but there's just like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing, like, there's something else. And so I kind of went almost like cap in hand back, like, so this Creatrix thing, I think I'm ready for it now. So yes, I always laugh about that when I'm talking to other people and they're skeptical. I'm like, oh, I hear you. Like I've been there. So I had that breakthrough, and that was huge. That was just like huge, and I had 2 little kids at the time. I seem to recall that it was my daughter's 5th birthday as I was on that, like doing. So I remember it was a big sacrifice for me. I had to borrow money from my parents. It was quite like it was quite challenging in that sense, because it wasn't like how I like to do things. I like to be nice and independent. So I went and did that. And initially I think I kind of almost took myself out of it. I found it really hard the first day that we were doing it. And then Maz was like, she's like, you don't trust, like you need to trust, and like go and do trust and doubt. And so we Creatrix trust and doubt, like my whole big, massive, long list of like things. Let's just put that to one side and do these 2, because you're so caught up in not trusting anyone. And that was a big thing. Like I didn't trust anyone to be able to do anything properly. I didn't trust anyone. I couldn't rely on anyone. I resented my husband, who's amazing, you know, but something like, you know, like it was just this mess of stuff. And a big part of it was like, I didn't trust anyone. I didn't trust myself. I didn't trust like anything. Like, and I kind of almost had a belief that nothing's going to work for me.
Yeah.
And so we did that, and it literally everything just started to disappear. Like it was just, and the ones that we did do then were just so easy to clear and go. Like it was just like, oh, this is what it's supposed to feel like.
And doesn't it feel good? Like when you get rid of all of that shit. And I think a lot of women will connect with what you've just said. This, I don't trust that anything will work for me. I know I was exactly the same because I had tried other things and they didn't shift. You know, there's a big disconnect between what's logically, logically, and the emotion or that subconscious place that runs the programs.
Yeah.
And nothing is shifting that for women. So they come into things with a lot of doubt, a lot of lack of trust. I don't trust that this will work for me. But as you say, if you're ready to let it go, it just goes, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's amazing the difference that it made just from literally one day to the next. And so even in that personal breakthrough, that point, I realized like, wow, this is really powerful, because literally I went from everything felt really hard and I was really stressed and in my head about stuff. And again, I kind of, back then I prided myself on my logic and I'm such a smart person and I've got all this kind of thing. But, you know, it like, being smart and logical was a skill and it's beneficial, but it can also totally screw you up, and that's what it was doing for me. And you know, so for me it really did shift even in that week. And then when I went back, so then that year 2014, it was an amazing year, because I went from having like barely able to have, like in this direct sales business that I had, it was like you had to have 3 active consultants happening to be sort of like this next level management kind of thing. And I could get 3, but they were never active all at the same time, right? So it was just like I could never quite crack that. So I went from 3 in and out but never quite active all at the same time to having 11 consultants like sign in that year, which is for me unheard of, because it took me like 5 years to get 3, and they were, you know what I mean? Like it was just like, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait, you mean I can get 11 in like, 6 months? Like, what? And that really shifted things. I started a networking group that year as well, like launched it and had amazing speakers. And like, I always thought, it would be difficult to get the speakers, but I just had amazing speakers coming. And we finished off, like I ended up wrapping it up eventually, and finished off. I had Leonie Dawson as a speaker as the sort of the last one, like really amazing. And so that was really successful, and I don't think I would have imagined doing that. I cut back my teaching hours, which was something that I was completely unable to do because I had such an issue around like that it just, you can't do it, that you won't be making enough money. Like there were just so many blocks around why it wasn't possible, and it was like the easiest thing in the world to do.
And when you're in that mindset, you're just continually talking yourself into the blocks, aren't you? Into stopping. Yeah,
so much so. And I suppose kind of almost looking for evidence to prove, like, see, there's no way I could cut my hours at the moment because this new bill rolled in or whatever. And so so that was a really amazing year for me, and it really I think showed me how, like, I literally went, and like I said, it wasn't like I wasn't working my business before, or there was just so many things that shifted. And even in my teaching position, one of my senior staff members approached me at sort of about around about Easter time, right? And they're like, what did you do over, like, you said you went and did this? And it was a guy too, like they're not always the most observant. What did you do? Like, I know you said you went and did this thing over what did you do? Because you are having such a good year, and things that was like would totally mess you up and just not, like, things just aren't getting to you. And I think that was the thing. Like I was quite, like I'd kind of hold it together at work, but I was pretty fragile, and I took things really personally, and I was probably a bit oversensitive. There was some workplace bullying, but in hindsight, I'm like, there was some workplace bullying, but then there was also like a bit of my own kind of exacerbating of it as well. So it's not to deny what was going on, but at the same time, it was like, oh, I had a bit of a role to play in there.
Okay.
And so when they came and spoke to me about it, and they hadn't been involved in the bullying, but they were just like, yeah, you just seem to be like, whatever, everything's fine. Like, I'm just gonna go with it. And I was like, yeah, it's kind of like, it's just, so in every aspect, things felt so much better, so more relaxed. I was able to, like, it didn't stop me from having problems. It didn't stop life from happening.
Yeah.
It meant that I was just so geared to be able to, like, right, this bit of shit has hit the fan. Cool. Let's deal with it sensibly, move on, like live. Okay, next problems come up, deal with that. Whereas before, it would have sent me into a real spiral. I would have been really depressed. I would have been disappearing into my room for like, it just would have been a mess. So, yeah.
And that would have affected, your family as well as just you.
Yeah.
So life went from super hard to super easy.
My husband loved it. My husband loved it because he's hyper supportive. Like he's one of those, he's like one of those amazing guys. So he's very supportive. His love language is acts of service. So like I love it because he cooks and cleans and does all the things.
Yeah.
But it was hard for him, and I kind of in hindsight realized how hard. And at one point he made a comment. I'd been in a really bad place, and then someone rocked up at the door, and I chucked on some clothes and came down like, oh, blah, 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 and had a little chat and over coffee and that, and then they left, and then I went back to bed. And he was just like, I don't get it. Like, how is it that you can just switch it on and be happy and charming and kind and like, and then the next thing you're just in the foulest of moods, and it's literally like you were in the foul mood, you switched it on, and then you switched it back off again and went back into foul mood. And I kind of realized like he really copped the worst of the worst of it. So he also then, I suppose, got like huge benefits from that. And our love life kind of improved. Not that it was bad, but it improved as well. So he was just like, point for Creatrix, like, hey fellas, if you can get them to do it, like totally do it. So,
well, when you feel better about yourself, you're going to feel better about everything else, not just making love with your partner. You feel better about just being.
You feel a bit about yourself, but I think also, and like, sorry for the TMI, but like you don't feel like having sex when you're kind of angry at them, like you're pissed off at them. Maybe not legitimately, maybe legitimately, maybe not. And in my case, it was very much like I was resentful and angry at him about so many things when in hindsight, like, he's just trying to do his best. And I had like completely unreasonable expectations and was being like not great to be around. So yeah, but when you're angry and you're resentful at someone, like you don't want to have sex with them. And so when I kind of got rid of all of those sort of issues around and got like, it kind of just gave me perspective. It made me see the situation for what it actually was, rather than through this filter of angry and frustrated. And I didn't even know why I was angry and frustrated. Like there was just, like
layers.
there was just so much stuff.
So many layers.
And then you take all of those away and you're just like, oh, what was I being such a bitch about? Like, I just don't get it. and also I was being like, that was not okay. And it doesn't mean that, again, that we don't, disagree on things or have to kind of thrash things out every now and then. But it meant that when we were doing that, it was from the perspective of like, let's deal with this. Let's have this conversation, rather than just talk, like I always talk about, you talk from your heart, not your hurt. And I was so much previously talking from my hurt.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I was able to actually get back and talk from my heart and be like, you know, hey, let's connect and work through this. And so things in that arena got really good as well, like better than what it was, which was really important for then what came next in my life. So is that okay to talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So that year was, you know, 2014, best year of my life. I did all amazing things, dropped back my working hours, had a successful networking thing, business was growing really well. And then I found out that I was pregnant with my third child. So as I was leading up to the end of the year, I thought, weighed a few options and thought, actually, I'm going to put in for this. It's kind of, it's got a rip. It's like a poor man's version of a redundancy, right? And so I was like, maybe get myself about 10 grand if I was lucky, and early maternity leave. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna put in for early maternity leave, and then pick up this like redundancy, this, you know, and in between leaving work end of December, because school finishes up just before Christmas, and baby arriving, which was about May, I think she was due. I have to go and look again. Got this block of time. I'm just going to like build my business, grow it. Like, it's going to be amazing. I signed up for a coaching course, like a whole heap of different things. So I was like, yep, that's going to support me as I do it. It's going to be amazing. Put in all the paperwork, walked out the door just before Christmas with it in my head that I was like, I'm never coming back. Like, that's it. I'm done with teaching. It's, you know, me and baby against the world. We're going to build an empire kind of thing. And away we go. And about 6 weeks later, in so February 9th, it was February 8th, we went into the hospital because there was low movement. I was 29 plus 5 weeks, so nearly 30 weeks pregnant. And they told us that she'd actually died. So I was induced and gave birth to her the next day on the 9th of February. And that's such a devastating experience to go through. And in the context of it, like, it was just like my whole life was turned upside down anyway. And then in the back of that as well was like all of the plans that I'd perfectly planned were just, everything was turned upside down and just ripped out from underneath me. So I remember that being, I mean, that was such a painful time to go through. But I remember sort of like probably about a few weeks like after I was out of the hospital by that stage and sort of thinking about things. And I'm like, I know that 12 plus months earlier, if someone at work just made a slightly narky comment at me or gave me a bit of a side eye, I'd have be fine in the moment, then go home, have a bit of a meltdown about it and be kind of like in a depression for the next 3 months.
Yeah.
And there I was going through the grief. Right. And hey, it was still shitty and I was really sad. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, I was like taking it in my stride. I was handling it. I had lots of comments about, oh, you're so strong. And whilst I appreciated the sentiment, I was just like, it's not that. It's just like, what are my options? I can't fall in a heap. That's not going to help anyone.
Yeah.
And like, I'm going to go through this process and grieve in the way I need to, but ultimately I'm just going to keep going, which I would never, like I said, I wouldn't have done that earlier. I would, like, throwing my skirt and I think realistically, because when I was in those deep, dark depressions previously, I did, have ideation happening. And so I almost wonder whether, had I not had Creatrix, whether I would still be here after that experience. Like, it was such a...
It is a massive traumatic and terrible loss that anyone will say if to lose a child. And I think grief it's different for everyone. And I think having the depression, all that sadness, layers and layers and layers. And then obviously you and I know that we've inherited emotions and traumas and stuff from the past. So we have, 100, maybe 1,000 events of grief that we have sitting on our DNA. So if we've released all of that, then to deal with one is still bad, but it doesn't collapse the whole lot. That's how I've sort of looked at it over the last 12 months.
I think that's so important with the layers of it. And I think the thing that I experienced for myself as well was that grief can also be exacerbated by seemingly unrelated blocks as well.
Yeah.
So, I actually had Creatrix in those early days afterwards on some success blocks.
Yeah.
Because part of the grief process was like, I've lost my baby, I've failed her, I'm somehow responsible for this, and I've blown up my business with this because I've done all of this, and now it's all like, what's the point? Like, it all is pointless anyway. And so there were a whole heap of beliefs around success and about how to handle things and be responsible for things that also played into grief. Like, the grief could have, and when I've talked to other people about grief, so much of it is I wasn't allowed to, I wasn't allowed to grieve for the first 18 months because I was responsible for everyone. And if I didn't do and so then when the responsibility came off, for whatever reason, then they just totally fell apart and then just couldn't get out either, kind of thing. And it's there's so many other expectations and beliefs that we attach to the grief as well, that it makes it harder to deal with the grief, because it's not the grief that's causing us the problem. And that then makes it really hard. It's the grief of I should have spent more time with them. I wasn't a good daughter or a good mum, or, I'm not a nice person, or I wasn't worthy of them, or, all of that shit that we don't even realize that we have it in there until it really comes up and we deal with it. But those beliefs, then you kind of whack a bit of grief on top, and that's that's a deadly cocktail.
Yeah.
And then people go, people deal in grief in different ways, and I'm like, yes, I think they do. Absolutely.
They do.
And everyone needs different times, but I honestly believe that a big part of it is how well you deal with it is how much other shit have you got?
How much other shit? Exactly. How much other shit is already there weighing you down?
Right.
It's which straw breaks the camel's back? What is it? Is it the grief? Is it something else? Is it the, somebody saying something, mean, and you just, that's it. Yeah. That's the one that did it. That's, for so many people, they say, I never seen it coming, and I don't know, why they were depressed. There's layers and layers and layers, and we need to know that they can be removed. It's not about one thing. And it's about owning that you have those layers, recognizing that there are layers, and the I'm not good enough, and the I'm not smart enough, or I'm not worthy, I'm not deserving. They care as much in the grand scheme of things as the grief and the sadness and everything else, because they contribute.
Yeah. And because there's so much shame around when you then have those thoughts, you kind of think, I'm not allowed to have that thought, because that's being selfish and self-absorbed, when I should be just devoting my emotion to this grief process. And who am I to, I'd catch myself in those early days laughing at a joke or, something a bit silly. And then I'd be like,
oh, I can't do that.
Can't do that. Can't be happy because I'm meant to be grieving. And, all that kind of shit, where it's just oh my God, thank God for Creatrix, because I was able to get rid of that. But I kind of look at that and just think, it's not just the one thing. It's there's so many layers to it, and it's a complex experience. And I think that if we can give ourselves the best starting point. You know, if we can kind of like, I don't know, like Teflon coat ourselves a bit, you know, like it just feels like we're able to deal with things so much better. Like, and I always say to, you know, my friends and clients, like, doesn't mean that bad shit's not going to happen. It doesn't mean that you're not going to feel an emotion about something that's a justified emotion. But what it does do is it gives you that position of clarity and perspective and a strength of emotion, so that, like I said, so that you're coming from the heart and not the hurt, that you're able to actually like deal with it in a logical way. Like, we think we're being logical, and then we realize just how much of the emotion crap's in there, you know. And it's like, you know, it actually means that you can step back and look at it and really come from that place of like, how are we going to do this and deal with this in the best possible way where we all get a really good outcome. And I just that feeling fortified, like it really does make me feel like, yeah, I can handle it. And if something comes up, then I know what I can do about it. And it's, I think that's, you know, and that's so important, because like a lot of the people I'm working with and I talk to, you know, they're in business or they're in teaching, and like same thing, like stuff happens and comes up, and then it's like, how do you deal with that? And, you know, in business, like things go wrong, you know, like how do you deal with that?
Business is hard, especially if you haven't done it before. You know, when I fell into this, I wanted to do this. I was so passionate. I knew nothing about running my own business. I'd always had a job. I had no. So every new step I climbed up the ladder, I'd have to go and get some more learnings around what I needed to keep me strong.
Right.
To keep me going, to keep me on this track. Otherwise, I would have given up. You know, I'm stupid, I've got no idea, I'm not supposed to do this, all of these beliefs that come up, and they do with every area of life. But if you've let go of all of those things in the past and you've learnt some new emotional intelligence, then it's easier to deal with than stacking another layer on top of the layers that are there.
And I really think that we, you know, how we do one thing is how we do everything. So even though we might get a block around like, oh, I know what to do, I'm just not doing it, for example. That's one that I've had like lots of clients, like literally this last 2 weeks, I'm just hearing that one coming up with a lot of people. I'm like, okay. So, you know, we see that like, oh, that's a business block. I know what I need to be doing in business, I'm just not doing it. But then it's a relationship block as well. It's the not breaking the relationship off when you know it's toxic for you both, or it's not having that conversation because you want to keep the relationship going, but you just don't want to have the conversation you know needs to be had. Or it's the, you know, if you do have a job, it's the conversation with your, you know, your employee that's not really lifting their game, and you need to kind of, you know, have that, like, get them up, or with your manager because you need to ask for the pay rise. Like, whatever it is, or, you know, with your child who's acting out, I know what I need to do, I'm just not doing it. That, whilst we might encounter it as a, oh, it's my business block that I've got happening at the moment, it's like, yeah, but honey, that is going to be everywhere.
Rippling through everything.
Yeah.
Good, I'm going to do that.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Go pink, quick. So 2014, so it's been 6-7 years. We've known each other since 2000 and probably 15. I met you at level 2 in our training. Yeah. So how's life? How's home? How's relationships now?
Yeah. So look, it's a really exciting time for me at the moment. So this year I've actually taken the whole year off work. So I've got some paid leave up until the end of this month, and then unpaid leave, which is scary, but you know, it's something I want to do. But I think, like taking everything in my stride. I've got all sorts of stuff going on. With, like, my dad is really sick. He's been diagnosed with terminal cancer. So it's part of why I'm taking time off, so that I can kind of drop everything if I need to. You know, there's my youngest, my rainbow baby, who came after Mia. He's in kindy this year, so supporting him with starting school and all that kind of stuff. Supporting my husband, who, you know, initially it was me that was the breadwinner, so that was like really, you know, his work was always sort of the side work. He's now, you know, building his career and moving into senior positions and things like that, so like roles are shifting around there as well. And so it's just a really like a moving feast of things to deal with, but also feeling, you know, like there's again lots of reasons why I could be struggling right now. Lots of reasons. But at the same time, whenever anything comes up, I'm able to then go and get support. And I've just last week, literally, I had two big Creatrix sessions for me. So we're obviously doing big ones for other people, but I was just like, I get some of that here.
And you do need to. I know I was actually you, I think, did a couple of sessions on me when I first found out my mum had cancer, because I wasn't dealing with that. I had to learn what I needed to be able to be strong and to do that and not fall in a great big heap, because that was always me, the emotional one that just fell in a heap. I couldn't deal with things. So that built me up and made me strong enough to you know, she's going fine at the moment, which is great. But it certainly wouldn't have helped if I was a mess crying on the floor all the time. That wouldn't have helped her in any way at all.
No, that's it. I think that's the thing is it just puts you in that place of like a really powerful place where things still, you know, it's not like you're immune to life and crappy things happening, but it just really does put you in that powerful position of being able to take it in your stride and being able to, you know, be the things that you need to be for other people, but as importantly, be who you need to be for yourself as well, to be able to say, you know, no, I'm not going to have anything to do with that person anymore, and like, you know, unfriend someone, or, you know, block a family member's number because you just kind of like, I can't have these conversations anymore, or whatever it is, like to put those boundaries in place for ourselves, so that
to be able to put yourself first, to trust yourself, to love yourself.
Right, and not only that we can deal with things when they come at us, but also have the strength to be able to go, you know what, I could deal with this. I choose not to deal with it because this is like, I'm not having, and it's easier for me to just go, actually, boundary, I'm not having this conversation, I'm not dealing with this person anymore, than to kind of go like quietly, like, okay, right, like quietly listen whilst they do that thing, and gently kind of suggest stuff. And it's like, no, like having that ability to be able to go, sorry, and no malice, no anger, no hurt attached to it, just total self-care. This is what I need to do in order to respect myself. And while you're not respecting me, I'm not making space for you. So
it brings a lot of peace and calm into your soul, I guess. Really, that's the only way to describe it. That makes life so much easier, doesn't it? Without all that worry and the stress and the anxiety and thinking about how you're going to talk to everyone, or, you know, be there for them when you don't really want to, and it's just all of this.
And I think also when because, I mean, being fearful around criticism or judgment and those sorts of things, that's really big. That was huge for me before that was my, you know, 3 or 4 pages list when I first had Creatrix. Now I just do them 3 at a time. But that's huge for a lot of the women that I come across around being criticised and judged. And it's, as I said, it's certainly huge for me previously. And it's really interesting. I've had a few encounters in the last, you know, 2 months where there's been, you know, criticisms, and it's given me whereas before I would have been like, no, like hyper defensive, you know.
Yeah.
Instead, I've been able to kind of sit with it and first of all actually ask myself, is there any validity to this criticism? Do I need to apologize, roll things back, like do something differently? Because, sometimes we stuff up, don't we?
Yeah.
So sometimes we've got to own that too. We're not perfect. So being able to actually genuinely ask myself, maybe they're right. Maybe I do need to like make amends. And so be able to sort of look at myself and genuinely say yes or no based on like not being defensive, but like what needs to happen. And then secondly, being able to, having done that, be like, no, I'm in alignment with my values. I'm totally in the right in this situation, or not necessarily right, but like I haven't done anything
wrong,
and I'm actually okay with what I've done, and I can see why they might be hurt or upset about this, but I'm actually good with what I've done, and I'm not going to, I'm going to hold my ground on this one. And again, from a really calm place where it's like, I'm not fighting you on this. I'm not going to try and convince you of my perspective. I'm not going to be defensive about it. I'm just going to very calmly say, this is how I see it. I acknowledge what you're saying. This is where I'm coming from. I'm not actually going to debate it. This is what's going to happen going forward, and you're either okay with that or not.
And I guess for you, having cleared a lot of stuff, we can see that there are other people that are seeing through their hurt, so they're seeing it through their filters, and as long as we know that we, either right or wrong, we've owned our part in it, we can understand where they are. And just leave it at that.
I think it makes us more compassionate. I think we can look at when people are, abusive or, get nasty or critical or that kind of stuff, we can kind of take a step back, and rather than taking it personally and being like, oh my God, I can't believe they said that about me, that we can kind of look at it and go, okay, here are the things that are going on for them. Here's how my actions have triggered them. This is what I've, whilst I've not necessarily done anything wrong, this is why they might be reacting to it badly. I'm not going to, it means that when you do start putting those boundaries in place, it's not that you don't love them, it's not that you're angry at them or anything like that. You're literally just being that kind of calm, putting the boundary, this is what's happening, like I like it, don't like it, I actually don't care, this is just what's happening. This is
what it is.
Really matter of fact, like it's not open to debate, this is just how it's going to be. And I think, which sometimes infuriates people even more, but at least you're kind of being calm.
If you don't like it, we can Creatrix you.
That's right. That's right.
You feel so much better.
But it's a powerful place to be, because you know, because I've, like, in the past I've been like, you can't talk to me like that, I'm not gonna, and it's just everyone's being off the show, and it's totally like emotional and fraught, and no one walks away from that feeling good.
No, exactly,
and often more damage done than if than before. And so there really is, especially when you're dealing with highly emotional people, highly, affected and sensitive to things, and in my case, some highly narcissistic and manipulative people as well. It's really easy to get sucked into all of that stuff. And so having the power to be able to step back and go, I can see the game that's being played here.
No, I'm not participating. No.
Not playing. Not doing that one. They see you and no. Kind of thing. It's really powerful. And it's like I said, no hurt, no heart, no anger, no resentment. It's just like, oh, I see what's going on there, and
not playing. It's a great way to live when you you can see that, and you don't have to be a part, because before, when with all those layers we were talking about, it was like you sort of didn't have a choice. It just went straight to the heart. It was like a dagger every time. You would take everything personally, everything, everyone, when they look sideways at you, oh my God, what are they thinking about me? It was always personal. And we know as women, we are internal, everything we take inside and we take it to the heart.
Yeah, for me, it was very much an immediate response was, oh, everyone hates me. Like, I'm just the worst person in the world. And no wonder no one wants to have anything to do with me. And I hate myself. And you don't understand me. And you don't get it. And you, and it was just like, just lashing out, and it was just, you know, that kind of like wounded animal kind of thing where, you know, you're trying to help them and they're like biting you. That was me. Like, I really felt like I was like, you know, my poor husband, who all he was trying to do was like help me because he saw his wife in pain and wanting to help me, and I'd be like, and he'd be like, oh, okay, and like bless him, like would persist as well, like whereas I would very much be like, yeah, well, stuff you, I'm walking out. I'll come back when you've gotten over this. But no, he'd persist. So I kind of, like I see that as like we're just so in our hurt, we're just so blinded with our pain, blinded with the pain that, you know,
you
that
can't
person
see.
then touching you, it just feels like more pain. Even when they're trying to reach out and help you, it just feels like more pain. And so we lash out. And so to kind of take all of that away and be in a place where it's like, it only hurts when someone's actually doing something hurtful, rather than everything hurts, no matter what they're doing, no matter when they're even being nice and they're trying to help me and help me see things for how it is. That just felt like more hurt. But now when someone tries to help, you know, if I've stuffed up and they're like, yeah, so can we talk about this? It doesn't hurt. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, right, I've done right. Let's roll this back. Yes, okay, I can then, you know, be, and it's great because it's like I can be a better person because I can actually hear criticism, or not, you know, but like advice and you know, where I've gone wrong, someone actually pointed out, and me not being like, oh my God, like they don't understand me. And instead I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, cool. That's not my intention, but I can see how my actions may have hurt you. I'm going to apologize.
I'll own it.
I'm going to own it. I never used to. It was always everyone else's fault, even when I was totally like horrible. And then I'd hate myself for being horrible.
Yeah, exactly. There's more guilt, another emotion that we have so much of. Well, I hope that you know, this video gets watched. You know, I think there are a lot of people, even if they don't realise it, there's no judgment or anything in this. It just is what it is, and we know that because I know I had no control over me, and I was angry and I was biting at everyone too. I think there are a lot of people that are walking like a wounded animal, like they've just been attacked when no one's actually touched. And to get rid of that hurt makes a better life for them, but also for everybody else around them, their partner, their kids, their work colleagues, you know, everyone. There's this massive big ripple that happens when you heal yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everyone benefits from it.
Yeah. Look, thank you so much, Ari, for coming and chatting and telling your story. I know that you know, it's been a journey, and there's been a lot of things that have happened, and we're both, thank God for Creatrix. but thank you for sharing. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you all in the next episode. Bye.